Okay, so Napoleon is, like I was saying earlier, he has not been fully defeated yet. He was just exiled to Elba. France is still paying him. And the talks of Vienna, when I was talking about the Congress of Vienna in the previous videos, just know that that's the conclusions that they come to. That's ultimately the resolution of the Congress of Vienna, right? But at this point, the talks are still going on, and there's a little bit of a lull in the late spring and early summer of 1815. So Napoleon kind of seizes his chance. He's still in Elba, and he's kind of thinking, well, maybe I can try to come back. Maybe I can rule France again. So that marks the 100 Days period. So Napoleon leaves the island of Elba and goes to France, all right? And he lands on the south of France on the 1st of March in 1815, and he doesn't even have an army, which is kind of crazy. It's not like he has those 600,000 men who are right there ready to support him, ready to go against a coalition. He goes there with nobody, but somehow actually gains some pretty significant popular support. A lot of people, really like Napoleon. They were not big fans of the restoration of the monarch. So you get this pretty large group of popular support with Napoleon, and they go into Paris. And once they get there, they seize power from Louis the 18th, and he flees. All right, so now you have this 100-day period starting on March 20th, where Napoleon is sort of emperor again, sort of. And he raises an army. He kind of gathers not only the people that he had gotten in the south of France when he was going up to Paris, but he gets more, and goes into Belgium and defeats a Prussian army in June of 1815. All right, and this really starts to freak out some of the members of the Congress of Vienna, because they think, well, maybe the revolution actually might stir up again. Ultimately, they had just done all this stuff to try to establish peace in Europe, and it seemed like Napoleon was threatening everything that the Congress of Vienna was doing. And so they corner Napoleon at the Battle of Waterloo, which is very well known. Sometimes we talk about people meeting their Waterloo, right? So in June 1815, Napoleon is defeated in Waterloo, Belgium. All right, so not far off from where he was just fighting the Prussians, right? So this is going to be the end of Napoleon's influence over France. This time he's going to be exiled way farther away. St. Helena is an island that's off the coast of Africa, right, and he's going to die there in 1821. All right, and so we're going to see that now, after Napoleon's gone the second time, the Quadruple Alliance is not going to look so highly at France, and it's not going to be so nice. So remember the first Treaty of France, where they did not impose any reparations? Well, this time they do. All right, so first they're going to actually, before we even talk about reparations, know that they make some minor changes to the previously established frontier, so they redraw the border ever so slightly. So France gets a little bit less territory than they would have under the first Treaty of Paris. All right, and also we're going to see a huge indemnity, all right? At first they paid nothing under the first Treaty of Paris. Second Treaty of Paris, 700 million francs. Okay, so because of all the people that died, think about all those armies that were crushed, right? Think about how certain people in Napoleon's Grand Army weren't even French, right? They were from other areas of the Grand Empire, and they joined Napoleon's army because they kind of had to. Okay, so all these people that died, and all this land that had been destroyed, and all this agricultural production that had been damaged, this translates into a $700 million indemnity for France. So how do we evaluate Napoleon as a leader? In some ways, he does certainly accomplish some positive achievements. It's kind of interesting. It's been said that he established the first egalitarian dictatorship of modern times. And you might ask, well, how can you be a dictator and how can you be egalitarian? More or less, I mean, the meaning of that is that, even though there is one central leader, so there is a dictator, everyone was meant to be treated equally. Okay, and we can kind of see that with the Napoleonic Code in particular. So take that with a grain of salt if you want, if you don't feel like a dictatorship is egalitarian, but in a sense, that can be seen as an interesting accomplishment of Napoleon. So specifically positive achievements. First, we're going to see that he centralizes the French government pretty significantly with again with a lot of his reforms with the Napoleonic Code. we're going to see that he also, of course, with the Concordat, makes a lasting settlement with the church, which is going to be really significant because during the Revolutionary era, we saw how chaotic the state of the church was. Um, this Concordat with the church is going to last for a considerable period, and so as far as religion is concerned, we're going to see peace in France for a long period moving forward. Also, even though some elements of the French Revolution, of course, we could see as bad. Once we get towards the Reign of Terror, we know that things have ultimately gone too far. But ultimately, things like ending feudalism, for example, were seen as a very good achievement of the French Revolution, and these actually spread throughout Europe. So, for example, when Napoleon consolidates Germany into the Confederation of the Rhine, he also ends feudalism there. All right, so these are seen as really good things. Okay, but liabilities, or in other words, things that he did that are much more questionable. Um, he represses individual liberties, all right? Remember, he creates a police state, right? So even though, ultimately he sees himself as a liberator, the way he rules he ultimately leaves it very difficult for one in the empire to actually have any sort of individual freedoms. The idea, he claims to be Republican, and he claims to be enforcing the revolution by doing things like ending feudalism, but ultimately he's also trying to repress any group of people or any individual who would try to subvert him. All right, he also, again, with that said, he's really not a Republican leader. He may claim to be, but he's not. All right, we're going to see, of course, because of the immense amount of war in Europe, it causes tremendous suffering, and also you're going to see a lot of the people that were conquered throughout the Napoleonic Wars were oppressed either by being conscripted into the army or ultimately just definitely being treated unfairly, not the same way that French citizens would be treated. So both good and bad achievements under Napoleon's rule. So after the Congress of Vienna had finished its discussions, we have sorry about that. Okay, we have the concert of Europe, as we can think of it as these different countries in Europe ruling in concert with one another. Sorry again, my iPhoto is trying to talk to me. Okay, so basically oh my goodness. Okay, what the concert of Europe is trying to do is it's trying to enforce the status quo as defined by the settlement of the Congress of Vienna. I know, this is driving me crazy, but I think it will stop in a minute. All right. Okay. So basically, the Concert of Europe is a really conservative organization. Again, the Quadruple Alliance is in there. Okay, so we've got Russia, Prussia, Austria, and Britain. And what they're doing is they're basically trying to do anything they can to put down any threat to the peace or balance of power. They definitely see France as the potential violator of the Vienna settlement. They make sure in the concert that no Bonaparte can ever govern France again. All right, so basically they if any little revolution, any little mini revolt rose up against the concert of Europe, they would very quickly find a way to stop it. They saw that liberalism and nationalism were kind of threats to the existing order. All right, so this Congress system we're going to see is going to control European international relations. So they're going to hold a bunch of meetings held by these great powers, so held by the Quadruple Alliance more or less, to monitor and defend the status quo. So basically, again, make sure that no one country tries to upset the balance of power, for example. They're going to, they believe that in order to have collective international security, the members of the Quadruple Alliance need to be unanimous in their decisions and beliefs. So this actually is going to cause Britain to bow out, because actually England is going to start getting more powerful, and it eventually is going to be seen as, maybe a threat to the balance of power in itself. So how do we evaluate the Concert of Europe? Well, ultimately, we're going to see that that the Congress of Vienna and the Concert of Europe have been kind of criticized because they definitely do ignore some of the more liberal and nationalist aspirations of Europeans. So the French Revolution did kind of generate feelings of nationalism, and certainly there were people that were very excited about some Enlightenment principles that the French Revolution were potentially addressing, and the Congress of Vienna and the Concert of Europe are trying to get rid of those as much as they possibly can. However, as far as establishing security is concerned, the Congress of Vienna, you could say, is pretty successful in kind of stabilizing this international system of all these different European countries. Really, we don't see the balance of power upset in Europe again until I would say, until the unification of Germany in 1870 and 1871. So really, in terms of just establishing security, that's going to be really significant. Now, as far as religion is concerned, whoops, I actually don't have that on here, but just so that we're aware, there was also an attempt by some of the conservative figures of the Concert of Europe to also provide protection for Christian principles. And so Tsar Alexander I established what was called the Holy Alliance. And he wanted all the monarchs in the Concert of Europe to sign a statement agreeing to uphold Christian principles of charity and peace throughout Europe. But then everybody signs it, but they kind of sign it and don't really take it seriously. The Pope doesn't sign it, and also you're going to see the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire doesn't sign it, and England doesn't sign it. Right? Only Alexander I is going to take it seriously, and we're going to see it. Some liberals kind of see it as an unholy alliance of monarchs against liberty and progress. So basically, the fact that some Alexander in particular of the Concert of Europe is trying also to get some religion imposed into their reestablishment of peace in Europe is really only going to be taken with a grain of salt. Most people don't really pay that much attention to it. So it's hard to just evaluate the French Revolution in one little slide, and there are much more details in our notes here, but I mean, ultimately, it's very complex. I mean, first off, realize that we could think about the successes, and then we could think about the failures, and then maybe think about some complexities within these ideas, right? So in a way, we can see a success in the sense that the old social system was destroyed and it was replaced with a new one that was based more on equality, ability, and the law. So there's no more old order, right? We also see that the guarantee of capitalism triumphing is there. We're going to see that there's also a guarantee of the notion of a secular democracy. No longer, do you need to have a state that is all consolidated under one religion. So, some people see that the revolution was a failure, right? But there are other historians that actually see many more successes in it. Like, for example, when Robespierre dies, all right, so you could see the revolution as a failure in the traditional way because, of course, Robespierre took things too far and was ultimately overthrown. However, other historians see that when Robespierre dies, the more solid middle class that had a liberal but not radical philosophy kind of reassert themselves, all right? So under the Directory, you're going to see that there is a pretty good proportion of social and political gains that both the middle class and the peasantry had made between 1789 and 1791. All right, you're also going to see you're never going to reestablish an absolute monarch, okay, and you're never going to have these separate legal orders as well. All right. Also, Napoleon builds on the orders of the Directory. Okay, he adds the support of the old nobility and the church to that of the middle class and the peasantry. All right. He tries to help the old and the new orders kind of reconcile with one another. He centralizes the government. He establishes careers open to talent, so a little bit more of a meritocracy. So, I mean, even though there were certainly periods when Napoleon was trying to repress liberties, ultimately his reforms kind of guarantee them. So in a lot of ways, we can say the revolution did embody the ideals of the Enlightenment. We saw progress in all fields, including government, as necessary and possible. And we also see that political science can be based on natural laws, that even the economy was more rational and could end internal barriers to trade.